being hunted. That shadow gliding between the trees isn't your imagination. Something massive is tracking you, its movements almost silent despite its size. You run, lungs burning, only to freeze as a different sound emerges from the scrub ahead. A low, rumbling growl unlike anything you've ever heard. The predator behind forces you forward. The one ahead cuts off your escape. Classic ambush tactics. They're working together. Or perhaps they're competing for who gets to claim you. Modern Australia might boast venomous snakes, saltwater crocodiles, and deadly spiders, but these are just the faint echoes of a land once ruled by megafauna so terrifying the world has never seen anything like it before. We're talking about an entire ecosystem fine-tuned for lethal specialization, cloaked in silence, speed, or sheer brute force. And the danger didn't just come from the creatures, it came from every direction. You couldn't trust the ground beneath you. The trees offered no safety. Even water, life's most basic need, became a gamble with death. Australia's deadly reputation wasn't an accident. It was forged in isolation. When the continent broke away from the ancient supercontinent Gondwana around 80 million years ago, it set the stage for something unique. By the late Miocene, roughly 10 million years ago, Australia was already drifting in ecological solitude. With no competition from outside species, its native fauna diversified and adapted in extreme ways, growing larger, stranger, and deadlier with each passing age. The Pleistocene epoch, spanning from about 2.6 million to 11,700 years ago, marks the height of Australia's megafaunal dominance. This wasn't just Australia's deadliest chapter, it was arguably one of the most dangerous ecosystems our planet has ever seen. The climate during this period oscillated between extreme aridity during glacial periods and wetter conditions during interglacials. These fluctuations created boom and bust cycles in resources, driving fierce competition and selecting for creatures that could survive and hunt effectively during lean times. Predators became more efficient. Herbivores became more dangerous in their defense. Then, somewhere between 65,000 and 50,000 years ago, the first Aboriginal Australians stepped onto the red carpet, greeted not by applause, but by a gauntlet of prehistoric horrors. And yet somehow, against all odds, they didn't just survive, they thrived. What's particularly fascinating is that most of Australia's megafauna vanished between 50,000 and 40,000 years ago, shortly after the arrival of humans. While debate continues over whether human hunting, climate shifts, or a combination of pressures caused these extinctions, one thing is clear: the window of time in which humans coexisted with Australia's most terrifying creatures was remarkably brief. Australia's geological isolation created other survival challenges too. The continent's soils are among the oldest and most nutrient-poor on Earth, leading to plants that developed toxic compounds to deter herbivores. Its weather patterns brought extreme droughts punctuated by catastrophic floods. Even the land itself seemed engineered for danger. Vast deserts, fire-prone eucalyptus forests, and networks of caves and sinkholes that made perfect ambush sites for predators. In this context, your chances of survival as a modern human dropped into prehistoric Australia would be vanishingly small. And to make matters worse, we haven't even touched on the animals that turned this continent into a waking nightmare. One being the largest terrestrial lizard ever to walk the Earth, Megalania, or Varanus priscus. Stretching between 4 to 5 meters from snout to tail, with some contested estimates suggesting specimens reaching 7 meters. This supersized relative of the Komodo dragon weighed upwards of 500 kilograms. For perspective, that's twice the length of the largest modern monitor lizards, with 5 times their mass. But size alone doesn't capture what made Megalania truly terrifying. Like its modern relatives, this apex predator likely possessed a mouth teeming with bacteria-laden saliva that could trigger rapid blood poisoning in wounded prey. Recent research suggests it may have been venomous as well. One bite could deliver toxins that prevented blood clotting while triggering a catastrophic drop in blood pressure, leading to shock, immobilization, and a swift collapse. Its hunting strategy exploited the blind spots in human defensive awareness. Despite its massive size, Megalania could remain motionless for hours, its mottled scales blending perfectly with the dappled light of woodland edges. Your first indication of danger would likely be your last. A lightning-fast lunge covering several meters in seconds, jaws clamping down with bone-crushing force before you could process what was happening. Even if you somehow spotted it first, your survival options would be non-existent. Megalania could reach speeds of 20 to 30 kilometers per hour in short bursts, making it impossible to outrun this creature. And if you think climbing a tree would save you, juvenile and even adult Megalania were likely better climbers than you, their claws easily finding purchase on all but the smoothest bark. But at least you'd see Megalania coming. The same cannot be said for Thylacoleo carnifex, the marsupial lion, arguably Australia's most perfectly engineered killing machine. Standing at about 75 centimeters at the shoulder and weighing 100 to 160 kilograms, this leopard-sized predator was something far more specialized. Imagine the most dangerous elements of a big cat, a bear, and a primate combined into a single predatory package. Studies have confirmed it possessed the strongest bite force relative to body size of any known mammalian predator, powerful enough to crack open the thick skulls of Diprotodon, the rhino-sized marsupial that once roamed Australia. Instead of traditional canine teeth, Thylacoleo developed specialized premolars that formed a biological bolt cutter, capable of slicing through spine and sinew with terrifying efficiency. Its front limbs featured pseudo-opposable thumbs, tipped with enormous retractable claws, perfect for both climbing and maintaining a death grip on struggling prey. Evidence suggests Thylacoleo was primarily arboreal, lying in wait on overhead branches before dropping directly onto unsuspecting prey. In the dense forests of prehistoric Australia, you wouldn't just need to watch the ground and the horizon. Death could literally descend upon you from above at any moment. Even if you detected one, you'd find yourself facing a predator that could pursue you through trees as easily as on ground. But perhaps the most disconcerting Australian predator wasn't a mammal at all, but Quincana, the land crocodile. While modern crocodilians are primarily aquatic ambush predators, Quincana abandoned the water to become a fully terrestrial hunter. Growing to 5 to 6 meters in length and weighing over 200 kilograms or 440 pounds, with some possibly even larger. Unlike its low-slung aquatic relatives, Quincana developed longer, more powerful limbs that lifted its body off the ground, allowing it to chase down prey with surprising efficiency across dry terrain. Unlike its modern relatives, with teeth designed for gripping struggling prey underwater, Quincana was armed with zyphodont dentition, laterally compressed, serrated teeth perfect for slicing rather than holding. These were teeth designed for terrestrial killing, for cutting through flesh and severing vital blood vessels with precision. What makes Quincana especially nightmarish from a survival perspective is that it subverts everything you think you know about avoiding crocodilians. The modern advice, stay away from water edges, cross rivers at their narrowest points, becomes a cute idea against a predator equally at home in forests and grasslands as along riverbanks. There would be no safe zones, no reliable way to predict where you might encounter this ancient terror, unless you somehow managed to fly. Completing this quartet of apex predators was Wanambi, a snake that puts modern pythons to shame. This madsoid serpent wasn't directly related to today's constrictors, but had independently developed similar methods of dispatch. Lying in wait near water sources, one of the few places you'd be forced to visit regularly, it could strike with lightning speed, and once it had you, escape was nearly impossible. Unlike modern pythons that end things quickly, Wanambi may have played a slower, far crueler game. Fossilized remains show prey animals with partially healed injuries, suggesting they were constricted, escaped, and recaptured later. This points to a looser but inescapable grip applied over extended periods, dragging out the suffering rather than ending it cleanly. And with such a body length, it was more than capable of wrapping around a human body entirely. Once those coils tightened, you wouldn't just be caught, you'd be folded into something helpless. Adding to the horror, Wanambi likely had a more limited jaw gape compared to most modern constrictors, meaning it couldn't simply swallow large prey whole. Instead, it may have had to tear into its victim piece by piece, ripping off flesh in chunks too large to ignore and too small to end things quickly. All this is to say, these weren't isolated threats. These predators coexisted, competed, and overlapped across the same unforgiving terrain. Escaping one often meant barreling straight into the territory of another. The very instincts that might save you from megalania, like seeking higher ground, could make you easy pickings for a tree-scaling thylacoleo, and avoiding riverbanks to dodge quincana, that just might steer you straight into Wanambi's ambush site. In this predator-saturated ecosystem, you wouldn't just need to be lucky once or twice. You'd need to maintain perfect vigilance across every environment, every hour of the day, against multiple predatory species with different hunting strategies, a task beyond the capabilities of even the most seasoned modern survivalist. But if you somehow managed to develop strategies for avoiding prehistoric Australia's dedicated predators, you'd still face a lethal truth that modern humans often forget. Herbivores can kill you just as efficiently as carnivores. Meet Diprotodon, the hippopotamus-sized wombat. Stretching up to 3 meters in length and weighing between 2 to 3 tons, this gentle giant was the largest marsupial ever to exist. With its massive, barrel-shaped body and relatively small brain, you might be tempted to dismiss it as a slow, dim-witted plant eater. That would be your final mistake. Modern hippos, despite their herbivorous diet, kill more humans in Africa than any predatory mammal, including lions and leopards. Their territorial aggression, unpredictable temper, and sheer mass make them lethal, despite their plant-based diet. Diprotodon likely posed a similar danger. A creature weighing as much as a small elephant wouldn't need specialized predatory adaptations to kill you. Simply stepping on you or crushing you against a tree would suffice. Consider the defensive capabilities this massive marsupial likely possessed. Modern wombats, when threatened, can crush attacking predators against tunnel ceilings using their reinforced posterior, which is a fancy way of saying they crush intruders with their butt. Scaled up to Diprotodon's size, a defensive charge or rear-end attack could shatter your ribcage instantly. And while its massive jaws and teeth were built for grinding fibrous vegetation, they were no less dangerous. Based on skull mechanics, Diprotodon may have been capable of bite forces exceeding 11,000 newtons, easily strong enough to crush bone if provoked, or if you unwittingly came between a mother and her calf. Then there's Procoptodon goliah, the giant short-faced kangaroo. Forget the bouncy marsupials of modern Australia. This behemoth stood 2 to 3 meters tall and weighed up to 240 kilograms. While today's kangaroos are already capable of disemboweling threats with powerful kicks, Procoptodon took it further. It possessed a single oversized claw on each foot, likely used for both defense and dominance displays, an anatomical upgrade that turned its signature kick into a devastating weapon. Its forelimbs were unusually powerful for a kangaroo, with hands capable of manipulating objects and potentially delivering crushing blows to threats. Skeletal evidence suggests these giants could rear up to their full height when threatened, making them taller than any modern bear when standing upright. A single defensive kick could shatter your femur. A direct blow to the torso would rupture internal organs beyond repair. And if that had been Procoptodon goliah, his dog would have been a red smear on the ground, and the one walking away calmly would have been the prehistoric kangaroo, not the guy. No discussion of Australia's deadly herbivores would be complete without addressing Genyornis newtoni, a flightless bird standing 2 meters tall. Modern cassowaries, much smaller at only 1.5 meters, are considered among the world's most dangerous birds, capable of delivering lethal kicks with their dagger-like claws. Cassowary attacks on humans are well documented, with numerous fatalities throughout history. Genyornis would have presented an even more formidable threat, with even more mass behind its kicks and a defensive temperament to match. Its powerful beak, built for breaking down tough vegetation, could just as easily crush smaller bones if the animal felt cornered or provoked. And like many modern territorial birds, it likely defended its nesting sites with relentless aggression against anything that came too close. Perhaps most misunderstood of Australia's giant herbivores is Dromornis stertoni, nicknamed the Demon Duck of Doom. Standing 3 meters tall and weighing up to 650 kilograms, making it approximately 10 times heavier than today's largest flightless birds. This Mihirung bird has been sensationalized as a carnivorous terror. Recent scientific evidence, however, indicates it was primarily herbivorous, with a beak and digestive system adapted for plant consumption. But don't let this dietary classification lull you into a false sense of security. Herbivores with young to protect or territory to defend can be far more aggressive than predators, which typically only attack when hunting. A Dromornis could easily perceive you as a threat, and its response would be devastating. One kick from its massive muscular legs would generate force equivalent to being hit by a motorcycle. Its huge beak, while designed for vegetation, would inflict catastrophic damage to human flesh and bone if employed defensively. The danger posed by these enormous herbivores was compounded by their unpredictability. While you might reasonably expect aggression from a carnivore, herbivores don't provide the same clear threat signals. You might walk past dozens without incident, creating a false sense of security, only to encounter one that's protecting young, injured, or simply more territorial. By the time you recognize the danger, it would be too late to react. While megafauna represent prehistoric Australia's most visible threats, its venomous and poisonous species constituted an equally lethal but nearly invisible danger network. Modern Australia hosts 21 of the world's 25 most venomous snakes, a deadly legacy from its prehistoric past, when even more potent species slithered through its ecosystems. Fossil evidence reveals prehistoric equivalents of modern eastern brown snakes, taipans, and death adders, but larger and with venom glands suggesting possibly more potent toxins. The true horror of Australia's venomous creatures wasn't just their lethality, but their perfect adaptation to the environment. Camouflage patterns rendered them nearly invisible against leaf litter or sand. Their hunting strategies, ambush rather than pursuit, meant you'd likely step on one before seeing it. Without antivenoms, a single bite would lead to paralysis, internal bleeding, tissue necrosis, or respiratory failure. Marine environments offered no refuge. Prehistoric equivalents of box jellyfish, blue-ringed octopuses, and stonefish patrolled coastal waters and tidal pools. Fossil evidence suggests cone snails, with harpoon-like modified teeth, injected paralyzing venom into unwary prey. One misstep in tidal shallows could deliver instantly debilitating toxins. Ancient arthropods, spiders, scorpions, and centipedes added another venomous dimension. Evidence suggests prehistoric Australian arthropods were generally larger than modern equivalents, with venom glands scaled accordingly. Their preferred habitats, rock crevices, tree hollows, fallen logs, overlapped precisely with the shelter locations you'd naturally seek. What made this venomous landscape particularly lethal was the absence of visual warnings. Unlike the megafauna, these threats wouldn't announce themselves. Each handful of gathered material, each footstep, each shelter space investigated would carry potentially fatal risk from creatures too small or well camouflaged to detect until they struck. If by some miracle you managed to evade both the specialized predators and volatile herbivores of prehistoric Australia, the continent itself would become your executioner. This wasn't just a land filled with dangerous creatures. It was an environment engineered by isolation and extreme conditions to break the unprepared. During Pleistocene glacial periods, it wasn't ice that killed. It was heat. Daytime temperatures soared past 45 degrees Celsius or 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Nights dropped below freezing, and century-long mega-droughts turned waterholes into predator traps. When the rain finally came, it brought flash floods powerful enough to bury entire ecosystems in a matter of hours. The land itself would betray you, riddled with sinkholes, caves, and sheer unpredictability. Fires weren't just natural, they were apocalyptic, fed by oil-rich eucalyptus forests and capable of generating their own tornadoes. Even the plants were as deadly, having developed toxic defenses that could poison you on contact. The Gympie tree, infamous today, may have had ancestors that caused weeks of pain from a single brush. Survival was a gamble where every necessity, food, water, shelter, came with lethal consequences. Waterholes, your most urgent need, were ambush sites teeming with predators like Megalania, Quincana, and Wonambi. Food was equally treacherous. Many plants developed toxic defenses, and without generations of indigenous knowledge, foraging became a deadly lottery. After looking at the animals, hunting was out of the equation. Scavenging was a near-suicidal attempt to snatch leftovers from creatures like Thylacoleo. Even shelter wasn't safe. Caves were often predator dens, and building one exposed you to attack. Seasonal changes would constantly reset the odds, with resources vanishing unpredictably. Modern humans rely heavily on pattern recognition for survival. We expect certain environmental constants, but prehistoric Australia would offer no such consistency. The cognitive stress of constant vigilance in an environment where familiar rules didn't apply would rapidly deplete your mental resources, leading to fatal errors in judgment long before physical factors claimed your life. Your survival in prehistoric Australia wouldn't be measured in years or months, but days or hours. This wasn't simply a harsh environment, it was a killing field perfected through millions of years of isolated development. And in our next video, the chaos continues as we drop you into prehistoric death zones across the globe, each more brutal than the last. Which one would you survive, if any? This is Roaring Echo. Thank you for watching.